Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unzipped. I'm super, super excited to be here with Gina Johnson. How are you?
Hi, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you here. We had, this has kind of happened with a lot of the people that we've recorded with, but we had some scheduling glitches and we had one or two or three tries trying to get you on here. So I'm glad that we finally did and we finally made it happen. So anyone who's just tuning in, we're on, I believe this is going to be episode 11 or 12. But what we do at Zippy Content is we represent authors, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, etc. And we find them interviews on podcasts. So with the show Unzipped, we kind of wanted to just start interviewing all of the incredible podcasters that we work with. We're going on 700 podcasters right now that are in our network that we have a relationship with. We've put guests on their shows and they're awaiting our guests in their inbox. And so we've been working with Gina since basically day one, like literally since we were getting off the ground floor. So, and this is actually our first time actually communicating and talking outside of email. So this is like really exciting for both of us. So Gina, go ahead and tell us about your show.
Sure. So my show is interviewing people that have had some sort of major life thing happen. And some of the, wonderful guests that you've sent me is people that have experienced hurricanes and all kinds of disasters. And then I just shared their expertise of how they stayed calm, helped others get through it, and how it changed their life. And I do it to help other people that are kind of stuck somewhere to get through in their own life.
I've always loved the theme of your show. I think it's amazing. And it's something that a lot of people can relate to in one form or another. So I think that's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about what you have going on outside of your podcast. What kind of like spurred this thing? What made you want to do this?
Sure. So I just started 5 years ago, yesterday, from a hospital.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. And I had a heart attack. I went to work one day. I did the same job for over a decade, driving a bus. And I was just about to pull my bus on the highway. And I had a migraine, lost my vision, went to the hospital and said, hey, by the way, last night I had this like real serious chest pain. Just wondering if maybe that has anything to do with what's going on. And the nurse comes running with this paper, waving it. And she said, you had a massive heart attack last night. I can't believe you didn't come to the hospital. And
oh my God. Wow.
That was kind of the starting ground of, I was 34 and I was Googling 34-year-olds that had heart attacks, like nothing at all. So
yeah, that's, wow. Sorry, continue.
That's about it. I just found James Altucher had a blog post about a moment he'd gone through like that. Different story, but similar outcome. And he had all these suggestions of things to do to get through it. And one of the things that I did was start a podcast. So I started putting together a list of people I wanted to interview right from the hospital.
Nice. That's awesome. So you've been doing, how long have you had the podcast for? Is that you've had the podcast for 5 years? Is that what you were saying? Or it's been 5 years since your heart attack?
That's a good point. It was 5 years since my heart attack, but I think I recorded the first interview like 2 weeks after I got out of the hospital. So in 2 weeks will be 5 years.
Nice. So you've been trucking along.
Yeah, I've done 90 episodes in 5 years because I'm also homeschooling my kids and a life coach, and I have all this stuff going on. So it's a once a week show that I do.
Well, one a week is a great pace for me. So you're a life coach. Tell us more about that. Tell us more about like the clients that you work with and the work that you do.
Yeah. Being a life coach is pretty awesome. And oh, guys, my 7-year-old has a nosebleed.
Oh no! Go do your thing.
Come this way. Can I have that? Thanks. Come here. He's never joined me on a podcast before.
Hi. Mom life.
Oh.
What's up, bud?
I was watching the Axel show and I didn't notice I got a nosebleed.
He likes the Axel show. That's the kid entrepreneur world. Axel has his own YouTube channel. He's like 8 years old.
Awesome. I've never heard of him. That's awesome.
He can't hear you because I have a headphone in.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just saying I've never heard of that little entrepreneur though. Kid.
Oh yeah. He's more than a millionaire now, they say. Check it out.
Wow.
Dad was in my podcast group, so it's pretty cool. But so life coaching came to me after, I don't even know how many people I interviewed. That was life coach after life coach after life coach. I thought, what is this about? Life coaching. And I went back to school while I was on leave from work before learning I wasn't going back to my job, and did the training and just absolutely fell in love with it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So what are your clients struggling with when you're dealing with them? Are they going through?
Tell them when Axel and their dad started.
They don't really want to talk too much about Axel.
Yeah, of course.
Go ahead and finish your Axel show. And Mama,
I don't want to go without.
Take it to Marcus. He'll help you, okay? I'll be done soon. Thanks, Eddie.
No need to apologize. I have a 4-year-old. There's no stopping that stuff when it happens. Don't worry.
Always at the most opportune times. I apologize. What was the last question you asked me?
I was asking. So, what are your clients struggling with that you're dealing with? Are they people who have dealt with real traumas like you've dealt with?
Most people that I coach are in the business field. So it might be through a company or they're just self-employed, believe it or not. And at the deepest core, I think it's the same struggle everyone has, but everyone to some degree doesn't believe enough in themselves. And as you coach, whatever the problem is, I'm not selling enough books or I don't have enough podcast downloads, underneath, kind of like the iceberg, you see the tip, but there's all that stuff underneath, is their own gunk they're working through of needing to just believe a little more in themselves, and then they see better results in whatever it is they're trying to do.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about some of the relationships that have come from the podcast itself. New clients, partnerships, anything like that?
I wouldn't say any partnerships, but definitely a lot of great relationships. A lot of after, you hear those stories and there's that powerful, me too. I'm not the only one. And so I've stayed connected with quite a few people that I've met on the podcast.
Definitely. I've experienced the same thing. Every podcaster that I've been on their show ends up being a friend that we stay connected, for here on out. You know what I mean? So it's definitely an amazing connection. My dog, here we go. So if anyone wants to get into the podcasting industry, what are some tips that you have just for them in preparation and doing it kind of smoothly?
I think having a good network behind you is the most important thing. I joined a paid podcast group, and there's a lot of ones that aren't paid. I just find the paid ones, everyone's a little more invested into being a podcaster. And then they share everything, how to record, how to edit, how to find guests, how to be a guest. And I spent hours learning, but I also was doing while I was learning. So kind of don't wait too long to start. And then as you start, have yourself some resources to help you get good at it quickly.
Right. For sure. That's smart to join a group. I've never had anyone give that advice before. I like that. So what about being a guest? Is there anything you've learned just from hosting a podcast that is kind of like do's and don'ts of being a good guest?
Yes. My favorite thing is to answer only the questions that you're asked, because there's nothing worse than when I've had someone on my show and they talked the entire time, and the only thing I said was, please tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get to know you. Out the gate, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, and then you're just kind of can't get a word in.
Yeah, so being a good guest is remembering that it's you're going to their house. They're the ones who have the angle or the lens of what they want to share, so it's all about their audience.
Right, for sure. So what about leveraging the interview once it goes live? Is there any way that you recommend promoting it or marketing it or anything like that?
Are you talking about the person who's the guest, how they would?
Right. Either way. I have podcasters that watch the show, and I have clients and guests that watch the show. So just kind of wherever you want to go with it. Do you market it or anything like that? Is there anything that you do that you might recommend?
I myself do. I really work hard on my LinkedIn and my Facebook. So I share everything on my Facebook page. And then there's the odd one that I find really meaningful I'll share on my actual personal Facebook. And I've learned that Facebook has this thing where if you share a link, they don't let as many people see it. So if you share a little bit of the interview and put the link in the comments, it will get to more people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something we've discovered too. Link in the comments.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any rule, but with 90 guests, I've found probably only half of them actually share the interview, because I've interviewed some millionaires and almost billionaires who are on hundreds and thousands of podcasts.
Yeah.
I find sometimes the little guys, like the ones who are almost there but not quite yet famous to the world, are the ones who actually share more and have more people listening personally.
Yeah, definitely. I've found the same thing for sure. Just from looking at my clients, I've definitely noticed the same thing. So what does the future look like for you? What do you plan on doing is there anything that you're doing in terms of work or podcasts or anything that we can look forward to?
Well, I'm starting to put together a database of training, and I have no idea how I'm going to package it or market it. But my vision is to provide a real good training program for someone who's just had this major thing happen, and it can help them to intentionally frame their mindset in a positive way, which probably sounds really hard, but I've had people,
love it,
paraplegics, quadriplegics, that for some reason are still happy and hopeful and still speaking and still helping. And I thought, what if we took the things they used and then shared them with everybody? So when something happens, instead of being like, why me, and climbing under a rock, you can be like more like, why did this happen? And what am I going to choose to do now?
That is incredible. I love that idea. Please do that. I love that idea. And it sounds like it's something that is so needed, because going through like a major catastrophe, like the people that you're talking to, I can only imagine it being just debilitating mentally. You know what I mean? So that's incredible. That is good for you. That's great. And is it just limited to like physical catastrophe, or is it like emotional traumas? Like where else is that going?
Oh yeah, there's for sure a lot of emotional traumas. I've interviewed people that were, unfortunately molested as children their entire childhood. And like, I couldn't even imagine how hard that is for them to overcome. So
right.
Whole range of things that have happened physically, mentally.
Yeah, what important work.
Gosh, you've sent me a lot of people that have overcome PTSD.
Wow.
One of the people I think you sent me was in a plane crash in the Hudson River. And that's a big thing to overcome mentally.
Yeah, no kidding. Talk about never wanting to get on a plane again.
Yeah. And gosh, his keynote's so inspiring, because he's one of those guys that talks about, how are you going to look at this? How are you going to allow this to impact you? And I think his trade line was in your own personal plane crash in life. And such a good way of looking at it, because whether it be some people turn 40 and for some reason they're just like, oh my God, my life's half over. What am I going to do? Something that seems so simple to others can be their own personal plane crash in their life.
Yeah, definitely. That's for sure. Wow. What important work. I love it. That's incredible. So tell people how they can get a hold of you and how they can work with you if they need to.
Oh, sure. My website is synergymindsetcoaching.com, and they can email me at Gina@synergymindsetcoaching, on LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
And then your podcast, tell them the name of your podcast so they can find it and listen to it.
Oh, same name, Synergy Mindset Coaching. If anyone has a suggestion of a better name, I'm happy to look into that.
I like it. I love what you're doing. Talk about amazing, incredible work. Definitely you are changing the world. So that is amazing. And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. I can't wait for everybody to get to know you a little bit better. And thank you.
And thank you for introducing me to just so many wonderful people.
Of course. Oh yeah. And thank you for being such a great part of our network and for working with us for so long and accepting so many of our guest suggestions. You've been great. You're easy to work with. Your show's great. Thank you again.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.